I've been collecting ancient myths and copies of pulp fiction for years before Neil Gaiman and Roger Avary worked together. But please, let me introduce this year's Comic-Con guest of honor, Neil Gaiman and Roger Avary.
It seems like only yesterday that I was...
I may not have the pink hair, but I'll try my best.
So, Beowulf.
Is this weird for you to to exit and then return?
Yes, it is. I think it probably would have been weird, but it might have been weirder if I'd stayed here the whole time and Jane had just been replaced by you.
Yeah.
Especially if I was looking away at the time when I looked over.
It's a resurrection moment. Yeah.
So last night we showed some 20 minutes of Beowulf footage to the world for the first time.
And actually, tonight, it'll be showing again at 5 and 6 p.m. at the UA Horton Plaza.
So if anybody wants to get down there, you probably won't be able to get in, but you can try.
It's in 3D, and
it's really cool.
It's really cool. You'll feel like you're coming down off of an acid trip after you watch it. It's absolutely wonderful.
What is it? Soon we're going to show you a 2D trailer. This is going to be the world premiere of the 2D trailer on a great big screen. It went out late last night on the internet, on things that you can watch that are like that big. But we wish that we had the technical facility in here to do it in 3D and to put 10,000 pairs of glasses on the seats, but apparently it can't be done, and we're sorry about that. Beowulf is the oldest story that we have in the English language.
And we're trying to tell it with the most modern technology available today.
And it's all about the story. It began when, we were talking earlier about Sandman movies, it began when Roger was briefly hired in about 1996 to direct a Sandman movie by Warner Brothers. And then he went in and told them what he planned to do.
It involved Jan Svankmajer and puppets, and I was describing it, and next thing I know I was ushered out the room.
And off the lot. And that was the end of Roger's experience on Sandman.
So I went home and I'm sitting around thinking, what am I going to do with my life now? I just spent, a year working on the material for Sandman. I started going over my old Beowulf notes that I'd been working on for, since like 1981. And Niel calls me up on the phone and says, And
I asked what he was doing, and he told me he wanted to do Beowulf, but he couldn't figure out how you got from Act 2 to Act 3.
Beowulf, if you haven't read it, is a fractured epic. It has two very distinct halves. The spring of Beowulf's life when he's a young man, and then also when he's an old man. And I think one of the great difficulties in the material has always been, in a Hollywood movie, how does somebody unify those two halves?
And Roger told me what he planned to do in the first half. And I said, well, obviously if you do that, then this is how you get to the second half. And there was a beat.
And it was like it's like I had been working on an equation, on a unified field theory, but I was missing a component. And then Neil called up and said, oh, but it's this. And it was like, oh my God, if it was a snake, it would have bit me. And so I said, let's go write it. You want to go write it? Are you available?
So we wrote it. And in Mexico, drinking cheap beer.
Which is the very best place if you need to write something that takes place in a very cold environment.
I kept saying, why aren't we in Iceland? And he'd say, drink more cheap beer. And I never actually found out why we hadn't gone to Iceland. But we wrote Beowulf. We tried to get it made. We came very close to getting it made. It fell apart. Time passed. Roger came very close again to getting it made and was just about to start making it when the phone call came in from Robert Zemeckis, who had been involved in producing the script the first time round, and Bob said that he had not been able to get our script out of his head and wanted to make it and wanted to do it with these digitally enhanced live performances. So
I respond to passion more than anything, and Robert is brimming with it. He's like a kid in a candy store, and when he started going through the technology and how it advanced and what we could really do, and basically when he said, you can do anything you want, you know, with this. See, whatever you didn't think you would ever be able to do on film, just reach into your mind and go crazy. And when somebody comes to you and with that much passion and just says, go nuts, I respond like a berserker. You know, I lift a sword and I go. And thankfully it was made, I think, to my great satisfaction.
So this vision of you as a berserker, it's like, you know, charging through the carpentry offices of Beowulf with a large sword.
I look relatively clean cut now, but preparing for the movie, I had grown this like giant beard, and my hair was really long, because I wanted to get into the performance.
The sort of the mad Viking thing.
Yeah.
So we sat around a table in about March 2005 and did what I like to call the kind of, basically bullshit casting. You have all done it. You have sat there around a table or at a bar and said, so if you were going to cast so-and-so, who would you cast? And suddenly you're saying, well, obviously, you know, Peter Sellers would have to play both parts or whatever, and you're doing that sort of thing. So we did that with Beowulf. We're sitting there going, well, of course, Anthony Hopkins needs to be King Hrothgar, and then I remember John Malkovich would be Unferth, the creepy one, and then Roger said...
I had always wanted Crispin Glover because...
Exactly, he wanted Crispin Glover as Grendel.
And we had actually always spoken of Angelina Jolie, and amazingly, you know, cut to 10 years later when we're actually sitting in the room casting the movie.
And what's really weird is, this is our bullshit casting.
Yeah.
Everybody said yes. Nobody said no. So they all turned out.
We literally, at that moment, felt, oh my God, we're walking in blessed shoes at this moment. You know, it was like the stars came into alignment.
It was. Now it's going to be released in 3D, in 2D, in 3D, in something called Real D, IMAX 3D, and Dolby Digital 3D, all on November the 16th, which means it will be the widest ever 3D release. It also means that you will be able to go into some cinemas, what you Americans call movie theaters, and you will actually have the option of going to see the IMAX version, the Real D version, or the flat screen version,
which we like to call
way.
The blow your mind version, the kind of really intensely blow your mind version, and then your head explodes version. Well, there's 3 versions. It's going to be in a variety of formats.
Once your head has exploded, you will, like a berserker, charge with your sword through the cinema, scattering ice creams and popcorn. Do we have time for any questions, or are we straight on to the... We have a couple of minutes for questions. Let's do questions. Just quickly, and then we have a trailer to show you.
You there in the back, next to the notes. Sorry.
Hello, I just had a question of how you decide who is going to be your artist to translate your books into movies or comic books or something. How do you make that choice?
You read a lot of stuff and look at a lot of pictures. Sometimes you meet a lot of people. And you try and build a great big world in your head of artists, and then suddenly you go, this would be the perfect person. And occasionally it's a really odd and upside down process. I remember once at Comic-Con in about 1993 or 94, somebody brought me a drawing that Jill Thompson did, a pencil sketch of death in the nude, for somebody who collected drawings of people in the nude. And I looked at it and went, this is amazing. I should have Jill Thompson draw my entire next storyline. And several people back in the line was somebody who introduced herself as Jill Thompson. And I said, great, I want you to do my stuff. And she thought I was lying to her or something. And about a year later, wound up doing the Brief Live storyline. So you find them. Sometimes writers say, how do you find artists? And I say, you just go to places that artists are and make noises like a writer and they'll find you.
I have a question about your timing while releasing your movie, because there was a recent Beowulf that came out in European theaters, that did pretty well. It was really well done, so I was wondering, about your timing.
Well, the thing about making something like this is we wrote our script in May 1997, and we were making this in early 1995. All of the performances were actually recorded in November 1995, but because of the way this process happens, it'll take it, a full 2 years.
It was 2005.
Did I say 1995?
Yes.
I've been drinking.
We've been working on this for a very long time. I think it's the point.
I remember in the 1830s when we first moved in here. It was 2005. But you can't stop working on Beowulf just because you hear somebody else is making a Beowulf. The only thing that I find weird is when people say, you've done this to cash in on the success of 300, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I go, if we had that amount of prescience.
I mean, oddly, actually, I think it was in 1997, the Christophe Lambert Beowulf came out,
Yep.
which bears no resemblance to Beowulf whatsoever, except for the title. And so that was, that gave me like a little bit of a heart palpitation.
We were worried.
And then I saw it and I was like, nothing to worry about. It's so completely different and not Beowulf at all.
Okay, so we are now going to show you the trailer. This is...
Do not put on your 3D glasses for this one.
This is the world premiere of the two-dimensional trailer being screened. I hope you enjoy it. Beowulf.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, no recording of that nature at this time.